guys, welcome into another Dorton ROR class guide video. Today we're going to be taking a quick look at the Chosen per YouTube request. And if you like what you see and the guide helps you out, smash those like and subscribe buttons. Alright guys, we're going to take a quick look at the two-hand build here. This is the spec that I am currently running on my Chosen. And then we'll take a look at Warband build. So to start out in Path of Dread, I'm currently running the Daemon Claw tactic and the Relentless Oppressing Blows combo. Daemon Claw, pretty self-explanatory. Every time you parry, you get a strength toughness buff. Because this is a tactic, it does stack with our auras and potions, class buffs, etc. And then Relentless, this is our damaging channel ability. This is one of our main sources of DPS. And you pair it with Oppressing Blows, it converts it to spirit damage and gives us a 15% passive crit buff with a two-hander. Rending Blade is a really nice ability, and once my Chosen's unlocked my last mastery points, I will spec into this. It's a AoE undefendable spirit damage. It does hit pretty hard. It is a lot of fun. However, I found it to be a little less impactful than some of the other abilities, so this will be my last investment. My leftover points I put into Path of Discord. I'm running Quake and the heal debuff aura. Quake is an ability that I just recently started playing around with, and I have fallen in love with it. This is great in solo play as a gap closer versus kiting classes, and in team play, if it's used properly to stun backline healers, it can open up a pretty nice kill window for your team. The AoE heal debuff aura, I like to run this in scenarios and in group play when I am paired with a AoE DPS. It is one of the few AoE heal debuffs in the game. Even though it's only a 25% heal debuff, it does add some nice AoE pressure for your team. Recently, I've been trying to play a little bit with Tainted Moon tactic. I'm not sure it's worth the investment right now. My idea was to try to use it against healers and keep them Sleeping Mooned up and kind of pressure them. But I'm not sure if the effectiveness of this tactic is worth the slot yet. If I decide later on after some more testing that it's worthwhile, I will leave a comment down below. And then the other option you have, instead of running Quake, you can run Downfall, which gives you an anytime knockdown or stun. You might have to switch from Quake to Downfall as well if your team doesn't have an anytime stun, or if you're paired with something like a Marauder and you guys are lining up pole kills. Now, if you wanted to do a Sword and Board build or a Warband build, you'd want to go 13 points high for Oppression. This ability you're going to want to use on cooldown. It just adds that extra mitigation for both you and your team. Mixed defense is pretty self-explanatory. Anytime you block, you increase your parry. It is important to note that you can parry guard damage, so even if you're not playing into melee blobs, this is still going to add just extra damage mitigation for yourself. And then Downfall, which we already covered, is the stun for your team, so you're always going to want to choose that as well. And when you're in Warband spec, you're going to want to take Quake and, in my opinion, the heal debuff aura as well. Quake just gives you an extra AoE CC, uses to interrupt healers in Zerg play, stuff like that. It is important to note too that Quake will give stun immunities, so you don't want to just throw this out into big AoE clumps. Otherwise, you might be giving immunities to targets that your team wants to stun and kill. Try to position your Quakes on backline healers and stuff like that. And then the heal debuff aura we already covered, just adds that extra AoE pressure. Alright guys, we'll take a quick look at Renown. There's not going to be anything real surprising here. It's pretty straightforward. I am currently running Futile Strikes 2, Max Parry, and then the rest of my points are just split between mostly toughness and then a little bit of wounds and strength. If you wanted to be a more DPS oriented build, you could drop passive toughness wounds for extra strength, or you could even look at getting extra melee crit as well. I would always suggest having at least FS2 and having parry max regardless. Now, if you're a sword and board spec, you're going to want to max out block ASAP, and then you'll have to decide if you want more dodge disrupt, more parry, or if you need maybe extra wounds. Depends on your gear. And then we'll take a quick look at tactics. Flawless armor, in my opinion, is going to be a staple into more or less all your gameplay. Just reduces your chance to be crit by 10%. Early on, this is a huge tactic too because it saves you some renown on having to go high into futile strikes. There was a recent patch as well that also increased the base chance to be crit by 5% for everybody, which makes this tactic even more powerful. Daemon Claw, we already went over this as well. This is a staple of two-hand builds. That extra strength and toughness, you just can't give that up. And then Oppressing Blows, also a staple to two-hand builds. Gives you that extra crit, and it makes your channel do spirit damage. The last tactic slot, as a two-hand chosen, if I am solo, I usually like to play Quicken Discord. This is primarily to reduce the cooldown of Touch of Palsy. Touch of Palsy is generally one of our highest sources of DPS in 1v1s or 1vx, so being able to keep this up on cooldown is super important. Other honorable mentions: if you're lower geared, maybe a little lower renown, the AP tactic for Power of the Gods can help give you a smoother gameplay, since two-hand chosen can be a little AP starved, especially earlier on. If you want to do something a little more defensive, you could do either Warped Flesh or Rugged as well, just to add a little bit of tankiness to you. If you're in a group of almost any size, you're almost always going to have to run Haste and Dismissal. This is primarily just to add the extra range on your punt. This will be a key tactic for sword and board specs as well, just so that you can peel guards off of your targets or your team's kill targets. Alright, take a quick look at gear here. My chosen is Far From Abyss, only rank 56, so I am currently running a PvE build. We've got 5-piece Bloodlord and 2-piece Sentinel with the PvE defensive proc weapon. And then I'm running 2 Flesh Render rings, plus the Grim Shimmer chest piece for the regen, the Sentinel ring, and then I do have an Event Parry ring on. The Event ring can easily be replaced with either the Gumbad Jewel or the Genesis Parry Jewel. For talismans, I'm running full toughness tallies in my armor, and then I'm running double armor tallies in my weapon. This is primarily because Bloodlord comes with very little toughness on its base stats and no toughness set bonus. My two-hand tanks, I still like to run a little bit tanky, just to keep that survivability up. And then the double armor is because I like to run between 4.4 to 4.5k armor on my tanks. This is as close as I got without going too far over or without nerfing my toughness. And then ideally, I like to be between 700 and 900 strength and between 6 and 700 toughness on my two-handed tanks. When Daemon Claw procs, I will be just over 900 strength and I will be just over 700 toughness. When you get into more Bisque gear, if you're looking at Sovereign and Warlord, you can actually get these up to being pretty much soft capped later on. So Chosens have extremely strong stat pumps. If you wanted to look at a sword and board build to start out, you're probably going to want full bank just to get some defenses and some extra block. Bisque gear is not going to change a whole lot. For two-hand, you're probably going to run offensive Sovereign and Warlord split, or maybe offensive soft, defensive soft split if you're looking for something a little more tanky. Sword and board, I think you're looking at roughly the same thing. You're going to be looking at mostly your defensive Sovereign, maybe some Invader gear to tie you over in the meantime. Real quick, we'll go over some rotational stuff. I'm really mostly familiar with two-handed. I don't think the rotation changes a whole lot with sword and board, other than adding in oppression into your rotation. So first thing you want to keep up is suppression. You want to, basically, I hit this ability on cooldown. If it gets defended, you do not get the 20% parry buff. So even if I have the buff up, I like to try to refresh it. That way, if it gets defended, you still have your parry buff up while you wait for it to come off cooldown for another attempt. Pretty self-explanatory. This is kind of the basic, but always keep your target snared. Tanks, your first role is to worry about control first, damage later. Try to keep your sleeping wound up on targets at all times. Try to refresh it around that 1 or 2 second mark. Especially if this crits, it can actually add a lot of extra DPS. Touch of Palsy. This is something I worry more about in 1v1s rather than necessarily in group play. It can be nice to put on a healer when they're trying to run or trying to kite, but generally this is something I prioritize more in a 1v1. Blast Wave, you want to try to keep this debuff up as much as possible, both in team play and in solo play. Just reducing hit points is always a good thing. From there, you just time your Relentless. Try to combo it with Taunt when you can for the extra damage during that window. And then, yeah, just maintain your buffs and maintain your snare. And if you're sword and board, add Oppression in on top of the suppression in your rotation. Alright guys, I hope this quick chosen guide kind of helps you guys out, get started. If you have any questions, or if I've missed anything and you've got some tips, feel free to leave that in the comments down below. Always happy to try to answer any questions that you have. Alright guys, stay safe and enjoy the war.